Wow. Animal Crossing New Horizon has received a Nintendo Switch 2 edition update and a version 3.0 with a shadow dropped trailer. This is both my first reaction and my initial analysis for what is, to me, a pretty incredible set of new updates that goes far beyond what I would have expected or even hoped for in a new update for such an old game. Let's get into it. First up, I'll say that while I considered a steady pace of Nintendo Switch 2 editions likely, I'm slightly surprised that Animal Crossing New Horizon, a game that they cut off so definitively in 2021, confirming that it would be the last announcement for the series in 2021, and have shown no sign of wishing to return of late, has been given such a big boost. And more strangely, that they've tried to time this boost for January rather than the middle of the holiday season. So let's get into the details of the update and see what all of this augurs for Isabel Tobnook and the Islanders. To start with, the addition of a new update does make sense as a way of drawing attention from the absolutely vast install base of Animal Crossing New Horizon to the game after all these years. If only a tiny fraction of these people come back to the Nintendo fold and clue themselves up on Switch 2 especially, given that they've announced this 2 months before the end of the year, there's a good chance that we're going to get a lot more attention being paid to all of Nintendo's operations. It also occurs to me that there must be an awful lot of people who joined the Nintendo Switch online service around April 2020, and while many of those people will have drifted off long ago, it's also possible that quite a few people are still hanging on but might need some extra persuasion in order to keep on the service, especially if they've also yet to jump into Switch 2. Now, this also makes sense to me as a way to model some of Switch 2's unique features using a highly popular and therefore highly visible game. Improved graphics and mouse mode make sense to include here, and the capacity of mouse mode to write messages especially feels like an elegant inclusion. The Megaphone mode, where you can just call to people, is kind of intriguing, and I'll be very interested to see if it's more than just a gimmick and how it really works. Now, certain elements from the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass turned out to be anticipating developments in Mario Kart World, notably the Sky High Sunday course, which started seemingly as an unusual Booster Course Pass exclusive course before being revealed for tour and then emerged in its final form in Mario Kart World. I could easily see this being a low-stakes way to test microphone-based communication and interaction for the new system, and that's a pretty intriguing thing, with, I think, more diverse possibilities for the new game than just shouting out for your islanders. Even if a small proportion of people actually do decide to use this, they should still be able to test a vast number of different accents and sound conditions under a far less pressurized circumstance than a major new original title, and that should give Nintendo a very long time to iron out any kinks and to improve and develop and update their systems. Of course, the game is also ideal for GameChat, and it's kind of curious that they've taken until now to really focus on the GameChat potential of Animal Crossing. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrades are all pretty minor though in the scheme of things, but I actually think this is fine as they've made version 3 free in any event, and I think this does include quite a lot of interesting content. What's curious here is that the new additions are essentially cannibalizing elements from Happy Home Designer to a large degree. I've had a theory before, and this only emphasizes it, that Nintendo wants to find some way to showcase all of their key franchises in the Switch 2 launch window. Not just Mario and Zelda, but Pikmin, Metroid, Kirby, Donkey Kong, and now Animal Crossing. And yet, they don't seem to have looked to put huge development resources into particularly the Pikmin and Animal Crossing revisions. Don't get me wrong, I think this is a great update and we'll go into a bit more. And so while this new hotel mode does look exciting, it's still essentially the same kind of game that people played on the expansion pass before. And so while this may serve as a kind of backdoor demo for Happy Home Paradise, and may even get some people to sign on to the expansion pack, it's largely just a reutilization of those features. I did notice last year that Nintendo seemed to not even be referencing the Happy Home Paradise DLC on one of their Animal Crossing launch pages, which I found rather curious at the time, but does now make sense if they possibly got their mileage from it in terms of having it bolster the initial launch of the expansion pack, and now they're using the elements from it to keep Animal Crossing in the spotlight. Also, I have to say on a personal note, I absolutely love Kapp'n, so I'm kind of hyped that Kapp'n is getting a bit of a boost. Beyond this, there are some storage increases, and I wonder what the source limitation is here. That means that they have until now stopped people from having 9,000 pieces of luggage, and in fact 9,000 feels like quite an arbitrary number in itself, but perhaps is less of a conspicuous number than 9,999, which might feel a little bit too technological for Nintendo's aesthetic with Animal Crossing. It's also good to see Resetti back again, a character I actually shouted out in a video I was scripting just yesterday, so I guess I'll have to make some adjustments to that now. Now, there's also an update to Luna's Dream World, a feature I must admit that I don't think I've ever looked at previously on the base game, but I feel like this is one of the biggest features in the title since it essentially allows multiple players to have their own islands, albeit as so-called slumber islands. This alone provides huge value, and while I doubt it will present any choices made in the new game, it's not impossible that they're exploring uptake of this option with a consideration for what they're going to do with the new title. After all, I'm sure they will sell the new game for $80, if not more, with a few years of inflation, and while this may be a bitter blow to many fans, they could certainly soften the negative attention by allowing multiple islands concurrently. The idea of collaborating on an island is the perfect way to leverage GameChat and other contents, to the point where I'm actually rather surprised that they didn't include any examples during this part of the film of using GameChat with the island building mode. Also very striking are the new features as they relate to other IP. And a huge thing here for me is the souvenir shop with classic Nintendo products included. One of the things Nintendo seems to be trying to do a lot of late isn't just building up the brands of their own IP, but building up the brand recognition of the company itself, with initiatives like the Nintendo Museum and other innovations being vital to this. The fact that the Famicom Disk System and the Love Tester feature, as well as more expected Game Boy and Nintendo Switch 2 appear, is all kind of cool. And bringing back the classic games is something I've long thought feels like a no-brainer, given that they are available on Nintendo Switch Online anyway, so this is both a great tribute to Animal Crossing's past and a fun new feature as well. The addition of LEGO content is very unexpected and delightful as a crossover as well. I do wonder if this might actually link to some degree to the timing of the announcement, as these things presumably require some negotiation, although I think there are other reasons for the January time slot, which we will get to. Nintendo and LEGO have had a long relationship so far, where LEGO make Nintendo toys and Nintendo publish LEGO games, but LEGO content in the core Nintendo titles has been rarer, and I wonder how long it is before we see a LEGO Mario game in the Switch library. However, seeing Zelda and Splatoon is not just a great idea, but also is a fantastic way to encourage people to buy Amiibo. Having Tulin and Minoru able to visit islands and even live on islands is absolutely amazing, and must be an effective way to promote Tears of the Kingdom. I'm a little surprised that Big Man didn't get a nod in the Splatoon section, but even so, this seems like a genius way to leverage the success and popularity of Animal Crossing New Horizons to drive interest both in their Amiibo line and into two other major franchises, specifically Zelda and Splatoon. And having done this for Zelda and Splatoon, surely using the Rosalina or Mario Amiibo has to be at least an outside shot to get some new cross-IP visitors. One thing that I can't sadly see happening is a Metroid crossover, cool as that would be, given the hugely Western skew of the Metroid audience, but I guess strange things have happened. As I say, it's not that version 3.0 is so huge that it couldn't have been imagined before. If anything, the updates are relatively small in scale, using recycled elements or redresses of old models, and the new content is mostly adding all these brilliant designs from other games. But all of this is a very effective positioning of Animal Crossing New Horizon to act as an entry point for lots of people to switch to and its features to the Zelda and Splatoon franchises and to Nintendo's Amiibo lineup. One thing that I'm covering in a video I've recently recorded, actually, it'll be on Patreon in the next week or so and on YouTube when there's a gap in news, is the degree to which Nintendo is utilizing its games to sell not just the titles themselves, but to encourage cross-selling and upselling of their many other offerings. It feels to me that the sales pitch is far more integrated than it has been in the past, and franchises like Animal Crossing New Horizons are an incredible way to draw all of these strands together. Note that unlike in 2021, they haven't sworn off another content update with this, so while I don't expect 4.0 to drop anytime soon, I do think they could continue to add around the fringes for a year or even two. Why a January release then? Well, firstly, they probably felt that the game would not particularly need advertising before the holiday season, as Animal Crossing New Horizon is already fairly well known, but on the other hand, it would draw a sizable amount of interest, and so some of those people might decide to check out Switch 2 as they discover Animal Crossing content. Perhaps Nintendo also is very content with the amount of Switches that they can currently supply, and if they were planning to have some kind of price increase in January, at least in some regions, it might make sense that they ensure that they have some kind of big new feature to counterbalance it. I've said before that I don't expect a new Animal Crossing game until at least 2027, and with this update I think 2028 remains far more plausible on the basis that in recent times they've kept Animal Crossing with the handheld side of their business, and while Switch 2 of course can function as a handheld, I'd expect them to wait until the next Animal Crossing has a light version of the Switch 2 to shift. All things considered though, I'm really hyped for this update, and I hope you are too. It also makes even more likely further Nintendo Switch 2 editions, especially of the major cross-generational titles. I may come back to that on another occasion, but for now, thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.